Hey YouTube, Anna here. So I just wanted to make an update. I haven't seen you guys in weeks and weeks and weeks. Um, I had my baby. For those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, you should. It's at Anna TTC Journey is my handle. So I had my baby on the 23rd of April. And so I'm just going to tell you all about my labor and delivery, probably in a couple of different parts, and then I will show you my precious little bundle of joy. I have a lot to talk to you about. So on the 22nd, which was Wednesday, April 22nd, I started getting contractions really regularly, like between 3 and 5 minutes apart. And I was able to sleep, not much, like I got like 3 hours of sleep, mostly because I was super excited. So yeah, I had contractions, and so I was excited, and my husband was like, you know, if you were not getting a C-section tomorrow, we would probably go to the hospital tonight. And I was like, yep, I probably would. But I'm glad I waited. The next morning, I had bloody show and discharge, so I felt like I was losing my mucus plug, or I had lost most of it, and just pink tinge when I wiped. So I knew my body was actually ready to go into labor. So I was happy about that. I got to taste a small sliver of what contractions really feel like. So I was happy about that. And then I arrived on the 23rd at 6:30 in the morning. I went to Starbucks to get my nurses and labor delivery team one of those travelers from Starbucks of coffee and creamer and stuff, just as a thank you to all of them. One of my friend's moms is actually a labor and delivery nurse, and she normally doesn't work on Thursdays, and she rearranged her schedule, and she was there for that Thursday, and so I wanted to give her something specifically because she rearranged her life to be there for my labor and delivery. So I was really excited, and so anyway, we dropped off the coffee, I checked in, and then my OR nurse, I think her name was Jessica. I'm not really sure about names. Don't hold me to that. Anyway, I told her, like, the one thing that I am terrified of right now is to get an IV started, because I had the ECV here, and it was a different nurse, but I mean, they blew my valve over here on my arm, and then they poked me 4 other times, and then they finally got it, and then they mislabeled this, and I mean, it was just such a mess that it was really traumatizing. So I told her my concerns, and she said, well, you know, we can use an ultrasound and everything. So, you know, I'll get my boss in here to do it. You know, don't worry about it. But I feel comfortable doing it. I mean, your veins don't look that bad and blah, blah, blah. So she was confident, and I was like, okay, I really hope this doesn't suck. And I told her about my contractions, and then I also said, like, I need to go to the bathroom, like, bad, like number 2. And she was like, oh my gosh, are you crowning? Oh my gosh, are you gonna have the baby? Like, she was so nervous, and I was like, no, I think I'm just a normal morning pooper. And my friend who was in the room with me, and she's like, oh, and you're a nervous pooper. And I was like, oh yeah, that too. So like, whenever I have anxiety, it affects my stomach. So I told her all about that, and then she sort of laughed it off, and she was like, okay, I trust you. Like, I hope you don't have your baby on the toilet. So she got her boss in, and she was so cute. She looked just like Brittany Snow from the Pitch Perfect movies. I was like, you are adorable. And she's actually my neighbor. Like, she lives right around here. So anyway, that was cool. She got her boss in to use the ultrasound on my arm, and my mother-in-law suggested that they shoot me with, not Novocaine, lidocaine, to numb up the area before they put the IV in. And I was like, okay. me. It's gonna burn, because I remember getting the lidocaine shot for my epidural when I had the ECV, and it burned. So I was like, I'm just trading off like one hurt for another. This time they did the lidocaine shot and I felt nothing. And then they were like, okay, we're gonna poke you now. 1, 2, 3, stick. And I felt nothing. They used the ultrasound, they saw the vein, they went in, they did it, and it was awesome. So one real poke that I felt, and that was the lidocaine poke, but it was like tiny little prick, and that was it. So my contractions were still going super strong, and one of the like prep guy nurse dudes came in, and he was like, oh, it's just me again, you know, like really cool and chill and laid back. And like I was trying to joke with everybody that was coming in and just trying to keep it light, but he started asking me questions and I was all like I couldn't focus on what he was talking about. And he's like, let me know if you need anything for pain medication. And I was like, I am in pain. And then I was like, this is a contraction. So they were getting stronger, and I was like, oh, I can't even like talk to somebody during this contraction, so I'll just, and I think at that point they might have been still 5 minutes apart, but I was trying not to think about them and sort of distract myself, so I wasn't timing them because I knew I was getting a C-section, and there was no purpose of doing that. My water didn't break or anything. Then my OB came in and she said that there was a labor delivery thing going on downstairs, so once that was settled, she would start my my surgery. So it was scheduled for, I think, 8 o'clock or 8:30, and I ended up getting wheeled into the OR at 9 a.m. So it was a little extra waiting, which was kind of stressing me out. Like, felt crazy. I wanted to get everything done, and I was like nervous, and then of course my stomach was all upset. So right before 9, my husband suited up for the OR, and it was like this weird puffy marshmallowy suit, and it was supposed to like protect the OR from germs, but it was like paper thin little gown, and I was like, yeah, that's gonna keep germs out. So finally they wheeled me into the OR alone, and my anesthesiologist came in to sort of prep me for everything, and I could not understand her, like, at all. She had a really thick accent. She was Chinese, and I couldn't, she was asking me about, like, all of these complications, and I was like, I don't know what you said. So I just told her, like, just so you know, I'm really sensitive to medication, and I had an epidural, and it was supposed to last 40 minutes, and it lasted 5 hours, and just like all of this stuff. And so she said that she would give me the smallest dose that she's legally allowed to give me for the spinal. And the spinal did not feel anything like the epidural. It was like a poke, but not intense, and didn't hear a pop, didn't feel anything. It just, all of a sudden, my legs started tingling. And I didn't know, because I had to sit up for it, I didn't know if it was like the weight of my big pregnant belly on my legs that made my legs tingle, but I was like, my legs are tingling. And then everybody else was sort of getting the drape up and like all this stuff. And then this other OR nurse came over, and she was Russian, and I couldn't understand her either. She was like, we're gonna frog your legs for the catheter. And I was like, I don't know what you said. What? And I mean, I could feel that people were touching me down there, but I couldn't tell you what they were doing or where my legs were because I couldn't feel anything. So I was like, I don't know what you said. And she was like, we're going to frog your legs. And I was like, I don't know what she said. And then somebody else was like, she said frog your legs. Like, we're going to move your legs now, like butterfly position, and we're going to put the catheter in. And I was like, oh. And by that time, the catheter was already in. So I was just sitting there like, I don't know what's going on. I can't understand anybody. But they were all super nice and hilarious. So then, like, the full effect of the spinal was sort of in me, and I started, like, my teeth started chattering, like I was so cold. I didn't actually feel cold, but it just sort of, like, happened uncontrollably it happened. So they wrapped me in warm blankets, and I just had like a cocoon of warm blankets around me, and I was like, I want to hear her cry. So I kept on like trying to move it off of my ears so I could actually like hear what was going on. And by that time my husband was there, and so everything that I felt, I was just telling him, like, I feel chattery, and so he would be like, she feels cold. And then they would, you know, rearrange everything, and he was great. Like, he was telling me all about what was happening, and relayed everything that I was communicating with him. So the anesthesiologist said that we're not allowed to take pictures. The first guy, the guy who did the IV, told us we only can have one camera and we shouldn't take video, and like all of these things, because we had two cameras, one for video, one for taking pictures. And so he was like, okay, so he only took one camera in. And the anesthesiologist was like, give me the camera really quick. I can take a picture of her being born. And so I have a picture of her foot coming out of me. And it's just crazy. Like, you can't really see graphically anything like my insides. So that's good. And then she took two more pictures of her being born, just out of me. As soon as they cut into the amniotic sac, my OB said, there's meconium staining. And immediately I thought, she's going to have breathing problems. Like, if she breathed that in, she's going to have breathing problems. And I know from all of the million ultrasounds that I had that she was practice breathing always. Like, it was really hard to get her to stop practice breathing. So I knew there was a high likelihood that she inhaled the meconium. So as soon as I heard her say meconium staining, I turned to my husband and I said, she's going to have problems breathing. And I think he just looked at me kind of like, what? Well, how do you know that? And yeah, so I heard her cry immediately. Like, once her head was out, I heard her cry, and they started sucking stuff out. And then they said that if there were no issues, that they would bring her right to me and sort of have her cuddled with me. But since meconium and all the stuff that was coming out of her was meconium, out of her mouth, like in her lungs, they took her over to the like care center. And so Doug got up and went over and was with her the whole time, and like would come over to me and be like, she's beautiful, she's perfect, and then go back over. And I remember seeing her just briefly when they were walking her over, and it was like, I'm gonna cry. It's like my heart was breaking open. It was beautiful. And my heart just grew so much. So that sort of was amazing, and I couldn't stop saying, oh my gosh, that's my daughter, that's her, she's my baby, oh my gosh. So I was just sort of amazed, and my neck was hurting really bad because I was straining to look at her, and nurses were working on her, and my friend's mom was, and she would come over and just say, in the sweetest way possible, you know, she had just a little trouble breathing, we're going to give her a hint of oxygen, she's fine, you know, just really positive about everything. And then they said, we're going to have to take her to the special care nursery because she's aspirated the fluid, and she just needs a little bit of help clearing the lungs. So we give her oxygen and it should clear out her lungs just fine. So I knew that, you know, they were going to take her away from me, and I was fine. At that point, I had a little issue with the Pitocin that they gave me to shrink down my uterus and stop the bleeding. Like, as soon as they said starting the Pitocin, I started feeling like really low blood pressure, nauseous, just faint, like I couldn't breathe, all of these things that were signs that there was some sort of problem with me and the anesthesia. So my anesthesiologist heard what was going on. My husband was telling her, like, oh, she doesn't feel good, you should stop doing whatever you're doing. And she said, you know, to the OB, is it okay if I take her off Pitocin? She has all of the effects, all of the side effects for Pitocin. So they did. They took me off of that. So I was fine. They said bleeding wasn't a problem. They went in and actually removed a cyst on my right side. I thought it was on my right ovary, but it turned out it was sort of hanging out between my uterus and my fallopian tube, but not connected, sort of, you know, not connected to anything vital. So they took it out, and that was going to take a little bit extra time. So my husband went with my baby girl, our baby girl, Cecilia, down to the special care nursery. But right before that, they brought her up to my face. Because I still had the drape over, and she just sort of pressed her hands and her face against my face, and then she grabbed my glasses. Yeah, and I was like, this is amazing. This is so great. That's my baby. And I was like trying to feel her head and her hair, and she had so much hair. So it was just amazing. Yeah, that was great. So Doug left with Cecilia, and I was just laying there waiting for me to get all stitched up. I also noticed that I was getting really itchy in the face, which happened to me before with my ECV. So I started like scratching my nose, and they were like, oh, we can give you something for that. And I was like, okay, I don't care. Like, I'm on so many drugs right now. I don't care. So they gave me drugs. I was still constantly touching, scratching my face and my chest, and just, it felt crazy itchy, chattery too. Like as soon as like my adrenaline was going, I started chattering my teeth again. Like I just couldn't control it. It was pretty intense. Oh, and the morning of the C-section, of course I couldn't sleep, so I was like, I'm going to wear a full face of makeup because I don't have to push. So I'm not going to be all sweaty or anything. I'm just going to be like, woohoo, cut me open, I have a baby. Wah! That was not the case. I was a crying mess. I was like, and itching my face, and like, my hands were like brown from like the stuff on my face. I was just scratching constantly, and it, like, wearing makeup was the worst idea. Yeah, so just a word to those of you, if you are going in for a C-section or you know you're going to get an epidural, some of the side effects could include scratching your face, and it is uncomfortable, and your fingers will feel so dirty from the oils on your face and your makeup, and yeah, it's just crazy. So they stitched me up, and they actually had some nurse, I'm not really sure who she was, I never was introduced to her, do some of my stitches, and my OB was there the whole time telling her where to go and what to do, and I could hear them debate like where to put in a stitch, so it was weird for me, and I was like, hurry up, I want to see my baby, like. Also, didn't want to be rude because they have the sharp objects down there. And so I was like, can you get a move on it? So then they wheeled me into recovery, and then my nurse came back that looked like Brittany Snow. And she was like, we're going to try to keep you here as little as possible, which the minimum is 30 minutes. So they were checking my vitals and getting everything okayed for me to leave. And my mother-in-law and my best friend came over to visit me. And they were like, we saw her just briefly, Cecilia, as they wheeled her down. And Doug was with her, holding her hand the whole time. And so, I mean, it was nice that they saw her. Everything was fine, you know. It gave me some peace. And then 40 minutes went by, and I went down to the labor and delivery recovery room, and along the way we passed the special care nursery, and I was like, I want to see my baby. Like, stop, I want to see my baby. And so they like opened the blinds for me, and they sort of wheeled me slowly, and then they stopped right when I could see her, and she had so many tubes like going all over her. And was, I mean, it was amazing to see her, but it was also so hard because I couldn't hold her, and yeah, it was really difficult. So I saw her through the glass just briefly, and then they wheeled me into my room. And Doug stayed with her until they finally let her into the room, and we finally got skin to skin, probably 2 hours after I delivered her. So that is my labor and delivery story up until I finally get to hold her. I will make another video about what happened in the hospital. So stay tuned for that, and I will go get Cecilia and show you her preciousness. Alright. Hey guys, this right here is Cecilia Kenlee. She just woke up. She's a happy baby. She's ready to eat too, so yeah. This is what I fought so hard for. My precious baby. I love her dearly. And I will update you guys all about the postpartum nurses that I had, all of the issues that I really had in the hospital. I stayed there for 3 days, and it was difficult. It was a very trying time. So yeah, it has not been easy the last 3 weeks. Just feeding her has been tremendously hard and been the source of a lot of grief and a lot of issues. But I can say happily she's gaining weight, she's healthy, she's not on oxygen anymore, and I'm so grateful. So I will update you guys soon, and I will see you guys later. Bye! I forgot to tell you guys that Miss Cecilia Kenlee was born on 4/23/15 at 9:23 in the morning. She was 20 inches long, and she weighed 7 pounds and 11 ounces. So, there she is. She's fussy right now because she has to go to the bathroom. So, there she is. I will keep you guys posted, and we'll hopefully update within the next month. Alright, bye guys.